Hello children, hope you all are fine. Today in this video I am going to explain to you clauses. See, I've got a lot of requests from the children about the clauses. They actually wanted me to explain this topic, and that's why on your demand only I have brought to you this topic that we are going to analyze, we are going to understand. See, regarding clauses, there are many confusions, many doubts, many questions in the minds of the children, and they often make errors in identifying different clauses. So we'll start it from the very beginning. So the first question that we start with is, what are clauses? Let us first understand what are clauses. So clauses are actually a group of words, right? And they have their own subject and predicate. Okay, just like a sentence, also a sentence is also having a subject and predicate of its own. So we will today first try to understand the words like phrases, clauses, sentences. Okay, all these are group of words. A phrase is also a group of words, a clause is also a group of words, and a sentence is also a group of words. Then what is the difference among them? Okay, let us understand. Phrase, let me write about what are clauses first. Clauses are a group of words with their own subject and predicate. Okay, so just like sentences, also clauses are also having their own subject and predicate. Okay, then what is the difference between the two? See, a clause sometimes makes a complete meaning. Okay, just like a sentence. And when a clause makes a complete meaning, it becomes a sentence, right? In a way, every sentence is a clause first. A sentence may be having one clause also, or maybe having more than one clause as well. Okay, so what I have written over here, a clause sometimes makes a complete meaning. Okay, and may not also make a complete meaning. So here we have to note one thing: a clause sometimes makes a complete meaning and sometimes may not make a complete meaning. Okay, so this is how a clause is different from a sentence. A clause, whenever it makes a complete meaning, it becomes a sentence. But this is not the case always, right? A clause may not also make a complete meaning, right? Whereas a sentence always makes a complete meaning. This we have to understand very clearly. And unlike phrase is also a group of words, right? But it never makes a complete meaning. Okay, what is phrase? Phrase is also a group of words which does not make a complete meaning. A clause is also a group of words which may or may not make a complete sense or complete meaning. Okay, whereas a sentence is also a group of words which always makes a complete meaning, right? And a clause which makes a complete meaning is a is an independent clause. Okay, a clause which makes a complete sense or complete meaning is an independent clause. Okay, independent clause. So a clause which makes a complete sense, is an independent clause. Okay. An independent clause can be written on their own because they are making a complete meaning, whereas uh, we would also find clauses which may not make complete sense, right? So they may not make complete sense. As such, they cannot be written separately. They are dependent clauses. So a clause may be an independent clause or a dependent clause also. If it can be written on its own, if it doesn't require any support, then that case is an independent clause. Whereas a clause that needs some support, that cannot have its own meaning, or that cannot stand alone, right? In that case, those clauses are dependent clauses. So as we have written here, a clause which makes a complete sense is an independent clause. But this is not the case always. A clause may not also make a complete sense, as we have already written over there. As you can see, I have underlined it. A clause may, whenever it makes a complete sense, it is an independent clause, and whenever it does not make a complete sense, it is a dependent clause, right? So a dependent clause is a clause which needs another clause to complete its meaning, to complete its meaning. A clause which cannot be written on its own, which cannot be written separately. An independent clause can be written, it can be written separately, written separately. It doesn't require any support, right? Whereas a dependent clause is one which needs another clause, another independent clause. Okay, another independent clause to complete its meaning. Okay, is a dependent clause, because we know a dependent clause cannot stand on its own. It requires the support of an independent clause to make complete sense. Let us go through this definition once again. Clauses are a group of words with their own subject, and they have both subject and predicate. Or in other words, we can say each clause has its own finite verb, right? The number of clauses, there will be as many number of clauses as many finite verbs are there. Okay, so there will be different sets of subjects and predicates, right? As many subject and predicate sets will be there, so many clauses will be there. We have just now discussed also dependent clause and independent clause. Dependent clause cannot be written separately because it doesn't make any complete sense. It requires the support of an independent clause to make complete sense. Whereas an independent clause is one which does not require any support, which can stand on its own. That's why they are called independent clauses. So let us just see some examples here. Now you can see I have written an example here. When the thief broke into the house, the dog pounced upon him. Now in this sentence, this part which is introduced by the relative adverb here, okay, this part which I've just now underlined cannot be written separately. it requires the support of this independent clause. So the one that I've just now marked is a dependent clause. It's a dependent clause. And this one, the dog found upon him, is an independent clause. Or we can also call it the main clause. Okay. A dependent clause can also be termed as subordinate clause. Alright. So this sentence has two parts. One is the dependent clause. When the thief broke into the house, this part we know that is a dependent clause because it cannot make complete meaning if it is written separately. It requires the support of independent clause. The dog found upon him. Okay. This is the main clause in the sentence. Okay. Let us see some examples here, and that we have to study also carefully. Example number 1, in which I show, I know what he does. Those whom people love become leaders. And the third one, this is the place where they live. I can't study while you make noise. Now I have written all these sentences in which I am going to underline the clauses which are dependent. Okay, each one of these sentences has two parts. Part 1, in which will be showing you the main clause or the independent clause, independent, and part 2, in which we'll be having dependent clause. Okay, so the first sentence I'm going to underline the dependent clause. The one which I'm not underlining is independent. Okay, so what he does is an is a dependent clause. And I know I'm writing over here, which is an independent clause, which makes a complete sense. Whereas dependent clause is what he does. It cannot be written separately. It does not make a complete sense. Okay, so it is a dependent clause. In the second sentence, sentence, whom people love. Okay, a dependent clause can be also found in the middle of the sentence. Okay, so whom people love is a dependent clause. Those become leaders. In this third sentence, where they live, this is the dependent clause. So I am writing it here under the category of dependent clauses, where they live. All right, and this is the place. So once again, I would like to draw your attention to this part, that each of this sentence, the fourth one is remaining. Let me mark the dependent clause in this. While you make noise. So while you make noise, right? And I can't study. Now children, I have shown the two parts of each of these sentences. Okay, these are sentences, I mean, we would show that these are consisting of one independent clause and one dependent clause. Independent clauses I have written here to the left side, and on the right side we have written the dependent clause, and I have also underlined the dependent clauses in these sentences. All right, so you can see that independent clauses can be written separately. They make complete sense. I know is an independent clause here. What he does, okay, it makes a complete sense only when it is connected to the independent clause, right? Likewise, whom people love, it is a dependent clause. It will make a complete sense when it is connected to an independent clause, right? This way it makes a complete sense. This is the place. So in itself it is complete, whereas where they live doesn't make a complete sense. It requires the support of this principal clause, right? So every dependent clause requires the support of an independent clause or a main clause to make a meaningful sentence. Okay. So next we are going to discuss what is a coordinate independent clause. See, coordinate independent clause in which two independent clauses are connected by coordinating conjunctions. What are coordinating conjunctions? We have to write them down, right? When two independent independent clauses are connected by coordinating conjunctions. Remember, the coordinating conjunctions are used to join independent clauses. Independent clauses, that means the main clauses or those clauses which can be separated, right? They can be written separately. So when two independent clauses are connected by coordinating conjunctions, now we have to give the examples of coordinating conjunctions. What are the examples of coordinating conjunctions? Such as but, or, so, and, etc. Okay. So I show you here an example. He worked hard. He worked hard, but he failed. Okay. Now in this sentence, two independent clauses have been used and they've been joined together by a coordinating conjunction which is but there. Okay, this is a coordinating conjunction and they are joining two independent clauses. He worked hard, independent clauses, or we can call it coordinate clauses because they are joined by coordinating conjunction clauses. All right. Our main clause we can also say, or a free clause. We can also call it a free clause, or we can also call it a principal clause. Okay. This is also an independent clause. Independent clause, and they are also known by these names. Okay, an independent clause, which is this example will make you understand what is a coordinate independent clause. The coordinate independent clauses in which the independent clauses are joined by using coordinating conjunction. Children, we know coordinate clauses are joined by coordinating conjunctions. Just now I discussed them. And what are the coordinate conjunctions? And, but, or, right? And subordinate clauses, if we talk about the subordinate clauses, these subordinate clauses are joined by or introduced by relative pronoun or adverb, such as when, where, okay, that, etc. And they are also joined by the relative conjunction. Children, just now we discussed the coordinate clauses which are joined by coordinating conjunctions. Subordinating clauses or subordinate clauses are introduced by, I write over here, subordinate clauses are introduced by relative pronoun or relative or adverb such as who, which, that, where, etc. And they can also be joined by subordinating conjunction. Subordinate conjunction. Now, what are subordinate conjunctions? Like since, because, and if, etc. Okay. So we have to remember subordinating conjunctions, they will make sense only when they are connected to a principal clause, right? Then only they will be making complete sense. Next, we are going to discuss on the basis of grammatical structure. We have to know how many types of sentences are there. So there are three types of sentences on the basis of grammatical structure. The one is simple sentence, right? And the second type is compound sentence, and the third type is complex sentence. So this is on the basis of the kind of clauses that they have or how many number of clauses the sentences have. They can be either categorized as simple sentence or a compound sentence or a complex sentence, right? So let us understand one by one, starting with the simple sentence first. Simple sentence has only one independent clause, okay? And we know a clause has both a subject and predicate. So a single independent clause will make, we can also write one independent clause or a single independent clause will make a complete sense, and it will, since it has only one clause, so it is called simple sentence. So a simple sentence will only have only one clause, right? Only one finite verb, right? Finite verb is what is the main verb in any sentence, or we can take it in the other way also. We can understand it, we can say a sentence with a single subject, and there can be subject can be more, but there will be it will have its own subject and predicate. One set of subject and predicate will be there, okay? So it is only one independent clause. Like I can give the example over here. The sun sets in the west, okay? Mohan goes to school daily. Ravi never misses his class. Now in all these sentences we have seen that there is only one finite verb, right? The finite verb I can underline over here. So there will be one finite verb, or in the other words we can say a simple sentence will have only one independent clause. Now next we are going to discuss compound sentences. Children, we have to see that just a short while ago we were discussing simple sentence in which only one independent clause is there. In compound sentence there can be more than one clauses, right? And these clauses are independent, okay? They are joined by coordinating conjunctions or connectors. Just a short while ago also we discussed like and, but, or. Let me write it down. A compound sentence has more than one independent clauses. So minimum we can take two clauses, right? The minimum condition for a sentence to be called a compound sentence to have two independent clauses. The least that we can have two independent clauses, or they can be more. Okay, the first condition, more than one independent clause will be there. Plus, the independent clauses are joined by coordinating coordinate conjunctions. Okay, so remember, if you have knowledge of coordinate conjunctions, you can easily do it. The independent clauses are joined by coordinate conjunctions. Even though we remove, I mean, we have to understand that, even though we remove that conjunction, the clauses can be written separately, right? Because each clause joined by a coordinating conjunction has equal rank. They are of equal status. They are making complete sense on their own, right? Hence, they don't need any support. Even then, if we join them by coordinating conjunction, they can be joined by coordinating conjunction, and thus they'll be making compound sentences. Okay, they'll be making compound sentences. So a compound sentence will be consisting of more than one clauses, and each clause is independent. Each clause can be written on its own. See the coordinating conjunction like and, but, so, or, etc. Okay, for example, Mohan left but he stayed back. Okay, you can go to play cricket or play hockey. Now you see that when the subject, we are talking about the same subject in the other clause also, we need to avoid the repetition. Okay, so these are the examples wherein we are using coordinating conjunctions to join the independent clauses, right? So compound sentences, as I said, they will be consisting of independent clauses, and each clause will be of independent, they will be of equal rank, they will be of equal status. Next, we are going to discuss complex sentences. Now, in a complex sentence, there will be the minimum conditions that will be required to, for any sentence to become a complex sentence, is there should be minimum one independent clause, and there can be more than one dependent clauses, right? One independent and more than one dependent clauses. So, complex sentence, it consists of at least one independent clause, and more than one dependent clauses. So it is very important to understand that complex sentences are those in which there should be at least one independent clause, okay, and more than one dependent clause, because those dependent clause will they'll depend on independent clause to make their complete meaning. Like I give some examples, and they are these clauses are joined by subordinate conjunctions. subordinate conjunctions such as since, because, if, and the relative pronoun and adverb like when, where, who, that. That is an though that is an example of conjunction, right? So we can give these examples. I mean, we can understand that the complex sentence is one which is consisting of clauses, one independent clause, the other will be dependent clauses, and they will be joined by subordinating conjunctions. Now let us go through some examples. Let's see examples. I did not go to school since it was raining. Now you can see, since it was raining is a subordinate clause. Okay, it's a subordinate clause, and this is the main clause or principal clause, or it can be called a free clause also. If I am not well, I will not attend the party. Okay, so remember that in a complex sentence we have to uh, understand that there will be minimum one independent clause and one dependent clause. Okay, see, this is the if clause is there, that is the subordinate clause, and this is the main clause, right? This is it about the types of sentences that we have discussed: a simple sentence, compound sentence, and complex sentence. Next, in my next video I'm going to discuss the types of clauses, right? What function they do, because they do they do the work of a noun, they do the work of an adjective, and they do the work of an adverb also. So we are going to discuss in detail the noun clauses, adjective clauses, and adverb clauses. If you have any doubts regarding whatever we have discussed so far, you can write in the comment box, and I will provide you the exercises in the description box also. Thank you so much.